Hey everybody, I am the man, the middle-aged nerd, and I'm really excited to be making this video today with all that's been in the news lately about President Biden forgiving student loans that some analysts say could end up adding $1.6 trillion to the federal debt. And I want to talk about how Vietnam ruined college. It used to be that you go to college, we're talking before Vietnam, before the 1980s really, you'd go to college. Let's use, for example, President Herbert Hoover. Brilliant guy, kind of an interesting fella. He's the only president in the history of the United States that has a degree in a hard science. He has a degree in geology. And funny enough, his wife, Mrs. Hoover, can't think of her name, she's an interesting character as well. She actually is the first American woman who ever earned a bachelor's degree in geology. But you figure, okay, back in the day, you got a guy like Herbert Hoover, probably comes from an okay family, they got a couple of bucks, they send him off to a university. He goes and he studies for 4 years, and he learns about geology. He's interested in earth sciences and precious minerals and resources and tectonic plates, all that good stuff. So he graduates college. He's presumably in his early 20s, 21, 22, 23, typical age. People graduate with their bachelor's degree, and he goes to some mining company, and he fills out an application or whatever you had to do in those days. We're talking like late 1800s here. Tells the boss man, hey, my name's Herbert Hoover. I got this degree from this prestigious university, and it basically says that for 4 years I've been educated on minerals and the earth's crust and how it works. And you kind of have a foundation. You don't know everything at 22, but you've got a foundation for the knowledge you have. And you also, the second thing a college degree used to mean is that you were the type of person who could commit to a task. I remember I was being interviewed one time. I was 17. I was trying to get an assistant manager position at a local fast food place, and I was still in high school. And the manager was talking to me about going to college, and I was like, I don't want to go to college at the time anyway. I was thinking I didn't want to go to college, and he told me having a degree will let people know that you are able to take on an arduous task and see it through to completion, not just over the course of a few days or a few weeks or a few months, but over the course of years, that you're able to start a task and stick with it, which is where you would have, that's where like the prestige of your Ivy League universities and some of your other, high-level universities, where if you've got a college that's known for something, like here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, University of Tulsa is known for having a very, very rigorous engineering program. A lot of kids from the Middle East who want to learn how to, drill for oil in Saudi Arabia, they come through Tulsa, Oklahoma. A young guy who used to work for me at one of my restaurants, he worked for me part-time while he was going to school, and he has a master's degree in petroleum engineering. So, and that is actually still true today, believe it or not. If you get a business degree from Harvard or from the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Finance, that means something. If you get a law degree from Yale, that still kind of means something. And that's kind of what college was. A certain segment of the population would go. There was a movie that came out in 1993, one of my old-time favorites, favorite football movies. It's called Rudy. It's about this guy, Rudy Rudiger, who went to Notre Dame back in the 70s. And it's kind of an interesting movie because it's based on a true story. And it's not like it was one of these things where Rudy was a certain religion or race and he was denied, and he had to break the rules or break the glass ceiling, so to speak. It was just a situation of, in the 70s at that time, or in before, it wasn't done. His family, they were kind of blue collar, working class Joes. They worked in the steel mill, and the people he grew up with, they graduated high school at 18. They were married at 20, and they had 5 kids by the time they were 25. And they worked blue collar jobs, and they were happy. And this fella Rudy, he didn't want that for his life. So instead of getting married to his high school sweetheart, he goes to work for a few years after he graduated high school in the steel mill, saves up a couple of bucks, and he goes and applies to a small college, Northern Cross, I think, Holy Cross. Yeah, I think it was Holy. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but and he gets in there because it's like a smaller school, but he wants to go to Notre Dame, so he goes to this school for 3 years, and all the while he's applying to Notre Dame, and he's working his way through, and he's trying to make the football team. That was the big thing. He wanted to be on the football team, but and ultimately his senior year he gets admitted to Notre Dame. He got, because they have their like standards, and he got his grades good enough, and he paid the tuition, and he got in, and it's kind of something silly to think about now that this guy went through hell, just years and years and years of hell to go to college. But in those days, it wasn't so easy, and it wasn't always so done. But again, it's not like there was any kind of like barrier, like how some country clubs used to like not allow you to join if you were a Jew or black or even Catholic. They were, which is unconstitutional and not right. But it has a happy ending. He makes his dad proud because his dad loves Notre Dame, and spoiler alert, and he gets to play in a football game, and so he was technically on the football team. It's a tearjerker, and it'll make you cry for sure if you've got a heart. And this went along for a long time, and there were plenty of people who didn't go to college, and they had very fine lives. But Vietnam comes along, and all of a sudden now you have a situation where you have a war going on that it's not as popular as World War II, and it's definitely not forgotten like Korea. And you have this baby boom generation, which in my estimation was maybe not as tough between the ears that the generations that came before them came. The baby boomers didn't grow up knowing hard times like in the Depression. Like my grandfather on my mother's side was born in 1924. My grandmother on my mom's side was born in 1929. My grandparents on my father's side were born in 1932. And my dad's mom, who is still alive today, she's 90. These people, they knew hard times. They witnessed them. They endured, the Great Depression for many more years than what it should have lasted. But that's another video. So these baby boomers kind of grow up in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of in the during kind of a golden age of American prosperity and dominance on the worldwide scale, having defeated Hitler and Tojo and Mussolini, and brought peace to the Western world, so to speak. So what you had, that the people who were building up America after World War II, you had these cats who they were coming home. They're 20 years old. They've been in it, like my grandfather. He left college to go join the Army Air Corps, and he was a Mustang pilot. And he was at Leyte Gulf, and he's gone 2.5 years. He left at 19, comes home at 22, goes right back to college, just goes back to work just like nothing ever happened, like he wasn't a war hero or nothing. And these were just tough dudes and chicks who, they went to work. They went and they didn't complain. They didn't get sick. They didn't stay up all night watching TV. If they had to go in on Saturday, they went in on Saturday. If they had to go in on Sunday, they went in on Sunday. They stayed late. They went in early. They were disciplined. They were dedicated because they knew how bad life could be. They lived through the 30s and the 40s. They knew, what a blessing and a privilege it was just to have a job. Even if you were digging ditches or wrangling alligators in the Everglades or whatever you were doing, you knew, dude, oh my God, I've got a job. I don't have Nazis shooting at me. I don't have to worry about stepping on bamboo shoots covered in fecal matter. This is great. And I only have to work 55 hours a week. Wow. Life was good. So Vietnam comes along, and unlike before, well, in World War II, there were plenty of guys who did their best to not go and fight. There's always been cowards. As long as there's been man, there's been cowards. But you couldn't dodge the draft by going to college in World War II and Korea. If your number was up, hey, you're going to have to make the best of it, baby, because you're going. And I don't know exactly what year it was, but they made it to where if you were enrolled in college, you couldn't be drafted. And so you had a lot of people, a lot of cowards. Now, we're not talking about the actual validity of the Vietnam War. That's for a video for another time. But you had one group of young Americans who, when Vietnam happened, think Tom Cruise's character at the beginning of 4th of July, they thought, hey, my dad or my uncle perhaps may have fought in Korea or World War II, maybe World War I, maybe it was my grandfather who served in World War I. You know what? My nation needs me. I'm going to go. This is the mentality at the time. So the courageous and the brave young men and women did not run from the draft, and they just flat out just joined up to go be part of the solution, so to speak. Then you had another group of Americans who saw a way out. They saw getting drafted and going to Vietnam as inconvenient, so they allowed themselves to get brainwashed into convenient lies about the war. And the funny thing is, though, there wasn't all of a sudden an increase in the percentage of the American population that was interested in engineering, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, law, architecture, city planning, business, economics, finance. So what do these colleges do? There's a bunch of kids who probably wouldn't have ever thought about going to college, but it's their ticket out of Vietnam. But they're not smart enough to become engineers. They're not smart enough to become doctors or lawyers or civil planners or architects or physicists. So what are we going to do with them? Well, I guess we can put them into liberal arts programs. We can put them into the classes we let our football players take. We can, foreign policy degrees. These colleges, and mind you, the federal government is liking the idea, oh yeah, more people are going to college, an educated workforce, it's going to be a more productive workforce, which is in theory is true. But they start going to college and they start learning that, oh my God, Vietnam is terrible, and they want to rebel, which I guess I can see every young person wants to rebel a little bit. Your parents listen to the Beatles, or my parents listen to the Beatles. I listen to Metallica. I'm sure when my daughter is of age, she's going to think, heavy metal is stupid. Not if I have anything to say about it, though. But the way they rebelled was in such a way that it was rebellion that had never been seen before. We saw in 1969 in Woodstock, we saw something called free love, which nothing's free. The Beatles said, love don't cost a thing. Yeah, it does. It it I've been with my wife 19 years. I have a child. I put a roof over my family's head. I put food on the table. I have health insurance for my family, so I know they're taken care of if they get sick. Love costs a lot. It's not free. Okay? It costs a lot of personal responsibility, and it costs a lot of sacrifice, and it costs a lot of me going to work when there's maybe a million other things I would rather be doing. That's what love costs. And you kind of had, in 1968, Richard Nixon, he won the presidency largely campaigning to the silent majority. We had seen a lot of hippies who didn't seem to have access to a pair of scissors or shaving cream or a razor or shampoo or toothbrushes or toothpaste or deodorant or soap or clean running water. And they were just kind of these filthy vagrants who they didn't want to grow up. They wanted to live in this magical fairy tale place called college. They didn't want to get married. They didn't want to have children. They didn't want to get jobs. They didn't want to be part of the machine, man. But eventually they did. As everyone grows up. You had one section, the silent majority we'll call, because they weren't the ones out protesting. The ones who love America and generally were either for the war or maybe neutral about Vietnam, or maybe they opposed it, but they still had bills to pay. These guys, they went to work every day. They got families. They're involved with their church or their temple activities. They're working to put food on their table for their kids. They don't have time to be smoking dope in front of the White House, acting like a bunch of hooligans. But this mentality that kind of came alive in the 60s and 70s, this anti-American, Americans are bullies. The problem is the rich, man. The rich, they got everything, and the poor, we got nothing, man. And they developed all these wacky ideas to where when it came time for them, maybe some of them, mommy and daddy just weren't going to support them anymore, and they actually had to get a job. A lot of them, they took those wacky ideas into corporate America, and they found out that in the real world, it's not all peace and love, man, and it's not all one big communal communist hippie fest. In the free market, in the private sector, in business, it is dog eat dog. It is the strong survive and the weak will die. And as long as I'm alive, I'll keep my head up high. It's tougher than leather. Run DMC. So a lot of them, they got jobs at the universities, and you started seeing in the 80s. I can remember. I'm 39, and Mike Rowe talks about this. Dirty Jobs guy. I can remember as early as kindergarten or first grade when I would be sent to the principal's office. There would be like a poster that says, don't work hard, work smart instead, or work smart, not hard. And under the picture of the caption that says work smart, it'd be like a guy or a lady maybe in a in a nice business suit. The gentleman would be clean cut, maybe wearing a pair of glasses, but with a nice haircut and a $500 briefcase. And then the other caption would be "not hard," which would be, maybe a guy, maybe a lumberjack or a guy on a roughneck out on an oil well with a hard hat on. He's just got muck and smudge all over his face. Maybe he's missing a couple of teeth because of an accident with a derrick, and his clothes are in tatters, and he just looks like he hasn't slept in a week. And it was really kind of a brainwashing campaign, because during Vietnam, the colleges had started making a lot of money, because all of a sudden there was this big, huge new segment of people that wanted to go to college. Well, Gerald Ford entered the draft in, I don't know, 75, 74, one of those years, 74, 75. He was only in for 2.5 years, so I don't remember exactly the date, but yeah, Gerald Ford entered the draft in the mid-70s. So the draft was over. Okay, now it's like, well, I don't have to go to college to, get out. There's no more Vietnam. There's no more draft. Cool, I'll just go live my life. Well, now you have a lot of these 18-year-olds in 1965. It's now 1977. They're 30 years old, and they're working in the university. They're working in the social sciences division. Because remember, colleges and universities, they still teach medicine. They still teach engineering. They still teach law. They still teach everything they've always taught. If you go to college and you want to be an engineer or an architect or be a nurse, they will teach you how to be an architect, but because there's not a lot of politics you can shove into, architecture. It's hard math, baby. Though I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. But it's where you get in kids who the colleges, they're trying to convince people. In the 80s, they start this big marketing campaign, work smart, not hard, to convince people, yeah, if you don't go to college, you're going to be a bum. You're going to end up working hard like a chump for the rest of your lives. Because that's the mentality of these 60s hippies. They were weak. They were cowards. So they equate hard work with a bad life. So you got to have a college degree so you can have a nice sit-down job at a desk and air conditioning and a secretary and bop, 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 bop. So you had in the 60s and 70s the weak hippies who hated America, who believed their own lies of, we were over there just murdering innocent Vietnamese kids. Nothing to do with trying to fight the spread of communism. Nothing to do with the domino theory. But they're just evil. And they were spitting on soldiers. Ask a Vietnam veteran how many times he was spit on. Just next time you're out at a restaurant or a Walmart, you see a guy with a Vietnam veteran hat, go up to him, shake his hand, say thank you, and ask him how long did it take for some hippie to spit on you, or to fling their own fecal matter, or to piss on you, or something horrific. Most of them will say, well, I came home in 1970 and I got off I was in the airport, I got off the plane, and I'm going to get my luggage, and this woman, she just comes up to me and called me a baby killer and spit in my face. That's like 90% of our soldiers. Our soldiers were told by their senior NCOs and their platoon leaders and commanding officers, hey, take your uniforms off and put on your civilian clothes before you get off the airplane or if you get off the bus. Just save yourself the hassle. Don't tell anybody you were in Vietnam. Don't tell anybody that you're in the military. That was what was acceptable in polite society in the 70s. Thank God they don't have the balls to do that to our servicemen now. But this is the mentality of the people who are now in their 60s and 70s. They are the people who have been running the universities for decades now. It's the 20-year-old hippies who spit on young Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen as they were coming home from doing a very, very difficult job. These are now the people who are, yeah, they still teach math. They still teach reading, writing, arithmetic. They still teach science, but that ain't where the money is, baby. And they're in government. They've infiltrated their way up, and it works its way to where now you have people like me. I did not finish my degree. I have about 3 years on an economics degree. I never took a penny in student loans. I delivered pizzas, and I met my wife when I was 20, and I felt like, well, I don't have enough time to work, have a girlfriend, and go to college. Don't know what the hell I was going to do with an economics degree anyway. I kind of like this girl I'm seeing, still with her. I guess I'll work and see what happens with this chick I got. But it's Democrats always talk about how Republicans give tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts for the rich. Well, Buster, you and me are now paying for these people who, yeah, maybe some of them did get law degrees or medicine degrees or engineering degrees or, finance degrees, economics degrees, things that actually, psychiatry degrees, whatever, things that might actually have some use. But the 26-year-old gender studies major, or maybe they got some phony baloney business degree that they really can't do anything with, or social studies or English or just something. And they borrowed a bunch of money, tens of thousands of dollars, and now they don't have to pay it back because hard times, it's mean, they shouldn't have to pay their loans back. And that's the influence of the university system, because it's a giant Ponzi scheme. Clearly, it's not it's not a Ponzi scheme. It's like Joe Pesci in Casino, where he would place bets with local bookies, and if he won, he collected the money, and if he didn't, and if he lost, he just wouldn't pay him because he was the stroke in that town. He was like organized crime, and there was no bookie that was going to like muscle him. That's kind of like where how the Democrats kind of have how the education system really has a hold over the Democrat Party. They've somehow been able to convince them, hey, we need you to forgive these student loans so we can keep giving you money, so we can keep financing, your up and coming congressmen and senators and presidents. You don't forgive this loan, don't give us this money. Maybe we can't juice you. We got an election coming up in November. Very highly auspicious. Biden has been president now for ever since January of 21. Here we are, damn near almost September of 22. He's just now doing this giant student loan forgiveness a couple months before election time, when it's looking like the Democrats are going to take a pretty hefty shellacking in the House of Representatives and possibly lose a few seats in the Senate, though it is going to be a tough year for Republicans in the Senate. We're most likely going to have a huge landslide in the House of Representatives. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, I suppose. The weak are running the colleges, and you have 19-year-olds out there protesting and burning down cities, talking about George Floyd don't know a darn thing about it other than somebody told them something, and they're burning down their cities. They're protesting. We're all evil. Everybody, the generations that came before who fought communism in Vietnam and Korea and fought Nazism and fascism and Japanese imperialism in World War II, and they fought the Kaiser in World War I to try to straighten them out when the whole continent was engulfed. And they fought our ancestors who fought so that black people that weren't even our ancestors fought brothers and sisters and cousins to free black people that weren't even their kin, because slavery is wrong. And we fought the British twice to be free of their yoke. And we fought the Mexicans to be free of their encroaching upon our territories and kidnapping of our settlers. But, we're the evil ones, man. Us ham and eggers who go to work every day, and we salute the flag, and we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're grateful for being born in the greatest country man ever conceived. We're the bad guys, huh?